Welcome to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco, bringing you interviews with industry experts and regular folks who tested the job search waters and succeeded, and strategies to tell your story and land your job interviews in 60 days, guaranteed. Here's your host, Virginia Franco.
Hey guys, we are live. Welcome to this live broadcast. We're so excited you could be here. It's all going to be about navigating job search in a crisis. So let's begin by doing introductions. I'm Virginia Franco. Andy, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I thought it was ladies first. Andy
Left, right, bottom, right.
Andy Foote, LinkedInsights.com. I'm a LinkedIn brand strategist and networker extraordinaire.
All right, Ed, you're next.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name's Ed Hahn. I am a recruiter. I'm relieved not to be talking about LinkedIn. Thank you, Andy. I will bring the perspective of someone who actually is a recruiter to the conversation.
And I'm Hannah Morgan. I am a job search strategist and have known these fine folks for quite a while. So I'm glad to be here with you guys. It's going to be fun. And hi, Kenneth.
There we go. Let's just dive in. The big question that has been on a lot of people's minds is, what changes are we seeing since all of this pandemic has rolled out? What are we seeing in terms of changes with job search and hiring activities? Andy, you want to jump in?
Sure. So I can answer it in terms of LinkedIn. Someone asked me recently on a Facebook group. Actually, I've got a Facebook group which is all about LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn Action User Group Heroes. And someone asked me on that group the other day, so has anyone noticed any difference or any sort of change in activity on LinkedIn itself, right? Have levels increased, decreased? What's your take? And their take was, I think actually more people are using it. And which kind of makes sense, right? That you are at home, you're working remotely, and you're in front of a computer screen, so you're not commuting. Why wouldn't we see an uptick in LinkedIn activity? Kind of makes sense. But I haven't seen that personally. I haven't observed that either in LinkedIn activity that I particularly observe and study. And I also haven't seen it on my LinkedIn blog, or rather my LinkedIn Focus blog. So I've actually seen some hard stats on my blog where it's basically gradually reduced. It's gone down, and it's definitely since COVID-19. And I find that's interesting because to me, people who look at my blog and try to get some LinkedIn intel and knowledge learning, they tend to start looking at my blog on Monday, and it peaks Wednesday. And then it goes back into a trough Friday, and it's pretty low activity on the weekends. But I have that regular, right, bell curve peaking at Wednesday, and I have a set level that I look for. And since January, it's been gangbusters, and beginning of March, So that's a hard stat. That's a metric that I've definitely observed, and it doesn't necessarily. There's no correlation necessarily with LinkedIn activity, but for me, that's interesting that I've seen less people, less foot traffic, if you pardon the pun, to my blog. Sorry, Ed, couldn't help it. Wordsmith to wordsmith, you gotta do it. But LinkedIn per se, activity levels, hard really to tell whether or not more people are at home and are checking in and doing actual stuff on LinkedIn, and if perhaps they're just like, they're viewing other people's profiles, not necessarily mine. But in terms of profile viewing, I've also seen it subside by 20 to 30% on what I was getting pre-COVID.
So I'm always the optimist and looking for the good. I'm a realist, but I'm an optimist. And I think that I would love to say that while there have been some positions put on hold, and I'm going to let Ed talk more about that. I actually have had 3 people. One person got a job the day after we were on lockdown. Another person has 2 interviews. Both were going to be in person, but they switched to Zoom. So she was practicing video interviews, and she's an HR role in a healthcare facility. Well, no, really, it's really an educational institution. And then the other person was interviewing for a job in manufacturing, like as a project manager kind of role. So I'm hearing interviewing still happening, not being cut off at the knees. I think that companies are figuring out a way they'll stall the start date, right, if they have to, or they do online onboarding. I think that companies are okay with this more than some people would think.
So what I'm noticing is absolutely no change in our organization about how many people we're hiring. Honestly, I extended 6 offers today that were all accepted. So very excited by that.
Yeah.
That's great.
The real impact I am seeing as a corporate recruiter has been consistently, okay, the organization still needs more people. We need people because that is what fuels the products and services that we offer. We need more of these things. And you know what? We are considered an essential business. I work for what is technically a bank. So we certainly are continuing operations, continuing to grow. What it all means for us is that the interviewing process is different now, right? And as Hannah was saying just before, so a lot of phone interviews and video interviews, of course, because it's simply not smart for anybody to take the additional risks. They don't have to, right? I mean, it's safer for the job seeker, it's safer for the interviewers and the other members of the employer.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I have definitely talked to clients where they have said that they have been located on LinkedIn, reached out to even since Monday, what we're on Wednesday now. Mm-hmm. They're definitely in certain sectors. The layoffs I've heard of are what everyone's heard of: retail, hospitality, anyone who's associated with those. But I actually today took a look at some of the job boards. I've never been a huge fan of using that as the primary point of entry, but what I have seen was a flurry of activity of job postings for sectors that need to be responsive to the virus. I went to MedReps, for instance, the device companies, the capital equipment companies that are servicing the hospitals, and you could tell that those postings have an urgency to them that normally postings don't. So I found that really interesting. People are going to have to be strategic and looking. They might land faster with some of those places. Mm-hmm. So the next question I want to throw out to all of you is, what advice are you sharing with people in terms of how they need to modify their job search, given that we're all home? And that's a whole new set of parameters, right? Who wants to start?
I'll go.
Okay.
One of the things that, obviously the home can be a challenging position, be challenging. We were talking about that before we came on air. Like, mm-hmm. There's the family unit going on and bandwidth and all of those things. So, I think that as long as you can get a corner of the house that you can do your stuff, you're good. And so what kind of stuff do I recommend people do? I think that Annie's going to talk more about like the LinkedIn profile and the LinkedIn stuff. But now is really, if you are actively job seeking now because you've been laid off, I'm hoping that's not too many people, or that you were laid off or decided to leave before this happened. It's really the next period of time, and whatever that looks like, is it 2 weeks, 2 months? I don't know what it is until things open up more. This time is for networking. Go back through your list of people that you know and go back and reconnect with all of those people that you used to work with in every company and just ask them how they are, right? This is a great chance for you to use that relationship, that existing relationship, to open up a dialogue again. So touch base with everybody you know. Touch base with your family, your friends, no matter where they are, and begin looking at those companies that you would like to work for, the target company, the ideal company, and see what's going on with them. Check their social media presence and see if they're posting anything. And the other thing that I will say, because this happened a lot in 2009, 10, 11, is that many times companies said they were in a hiring freeze or they were letting go of people, but that didn't apply across the board to the whole company. There are always some positions that needed to get filled ASAP because there was somebody quit or whatever that was. So don't let the fact that you're not seeing any job postings discourage you. That's not an indication of anything. It just means they haven't posted their job opportunity. It doesn't mean that they're not hiring. And that they are, and when somebody says, well, you know what, we're not hiring right now, that doesn't mean they're really not hiring right now. They could in the future. So always find additional contacts. Well, who else would you recommend that I speak with there, just to learn more about what they're working on and how they like working there? I'm just trying to get information about what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do during these next weeks and months, is really solidify those relationships and build new relationships with people who can strategically help you.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah, Andy, what would you add from a LinkedIn engagement perspective? What are you advising people do differently? Sure.
So in terms of how you can leverage LinkedIn, there's something that I do all the time, and if people are familiar with this, then I apologize. But do utilize the browse back. What do I mean by browsing back? So if you're trying to get on someone's radar, Ed's nodding. He knows exactly what I'm about to say because he knows, he definitely knows this. But if you're trying to get on someone's radar and you just want to try and open the door a little, if you browse their profile and they browse you back, then that's a door. That's been opened, right?
It's so tricky.
They wouldn't browse you back if they are not interested, right? And not curious. So that's actually the start of a precursor to the next move. And then, right, so what's your next move? Well, the next move, if you're not connected, would be to send a connection invite. And the more targeted, right, the more specific, the better, right? So, hey, Ed, I saw your comment yesterday, and I thought you nailed it. I think this, and you know what? I'd love to connect with you, if you're open. And there are multiple, different messages that you can send. Hey, Hannah, we're both a member of X group on LinkedIn. I know it's a dormant group, but I see from your profile that you're a member of that group. On that basis, I'm reaching out to connect. I'd love to. Or, hey, Virginia, you browsed my profile recently. We have quite a lot in common. In fact, we have these three people, name the three people in common. I'd love to connect with you, and I'd love to provide access to my network. So it's not just, what you're trying to get, it's what you can give because you have a network, and you can give intros too. So the browse back, the very specific connection request message, Zoom, what we're doing now is a great way to do a great thing to do at home, not just with company insiders, people that you want to be face to face with, but you can't do coffee. Do the teleconference if they're open to it. But it doesn't just have to be insiders or people that can help you necessarily. It could also be fellow job seekers who you want to form a group with, where you're basically sharing stories and intel and techniques. And so there's a lot you can do. And a lot of it is free as well, right? The teleconferencing is free, and it's as best as it gets right now because it's just improving all the time. So those are some of the things that I would do around video conferencing, browsing, leveraging LinkedIn, understanding how it works.
I'm so glad that you said it's okay to say thanks for browsing, because I feel like people worry that makes them appear stalker, but that just shows to me that you are being proactive and that you have invested in LinkedIn. Are you recommending that people take advantage of the 30-day free trial now? You can get a lot more analytics and a lot more insight, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. So, as Virginia said, you can now, you have always been able to, but now might be the best time to actually try premium, LinkedIn Premium. And as Virginia said, you get 30 days free, right? So to try it, you're not actually, it's not costing you anything. You can cancel it on the 29th day. It's not going to cost you a cent. But what premium gives you, and I think why everyone loves premium that has it, is it gives you this ability to see the full 90 days of web browsing. So in other words, you have a store on LinkedIn. How do you sell anything or engage with those prospects, those customers, if you can't see them? Well, LinkedIn Premium gives you that ability to see absolutely, well, not absolutely, but most people who come into your store, not absolutely, because as Ed knows, some people will browse you in private mode, which of course is something that you can do, right? Often I want to be Andy Foote when I'm browsing, because I want people to browse me back. And so full visibility is always most helpful to me in terms of what I do in my LinkedIn consulting. But if, for example, you wanted to do some sneaky stalking without any identification whatsoever, then LinkedIn gives you that ability to browse privately, and it can be a very powerful thing. I mean, I look at Ed's profile in private mode every day, and he doesn't know.
I knew it was you.
Of course I'm not. Of course I'm joking. But you got to be aware of that feature, that ability can be useful if you don't want to tip someone off that you're looking. But job seekers, by and large, I think would want to be fully identified and not private.
Ed, what say you? I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, it's quite all right. What were you going to say, Virginia?
I was going to ask you to weigh in.
So I love the browse back tip. Selectively, judiciously finding the people that you really want to connect with is huge, right? I mean, I think we've all seen in the last several weeks, of course, that use of social media has been huge because of so many shelter-in-place or self-quarantining measures that people are taking these days. A quick shout-out, by the way, to Ken, Aaron, and Adrian, and Valerie. Thanks very much, guys. Of all of you, funny thing is, Ken's the one person I've actually met in person. But going back to the thing that Andy was just speaking of, I am such a big fan of the targeted communication, right? This is a huge opportunity to have these, really authentic, genuine conversations. Not just because you're necessarily, oh look, I really want to know what it's like at your organization. And of course you do, Mr. and Miss Job Seeker. We understand that. But at the same time, there's a huge opportunity here to say, listen, I'm human. I'm trying to be authentic and genuine in the way that I'm communicating with you. I want to just reach out one person to another. I think there's a crying need for this right now because of all the isolation a lot of people are experiencing.
So let me add on to that, Ed, because I think that you're absolutely right. I'm an introvert, and I generally can be okay in my home for a week on end without talking to anybody. But for some reason, I'm craving human interaction these days. And so what I know is that there are probably a lot of other people who would be a lot more willing to have a conversation in the next couple of weeks than they would have been a month ago, right? So there's something about this situation that makes people feel that are on the receiving end of a request for a video phone call. They're like, oh, yeah, that'll be fun. I got time because I don't have my boss over my shoulder, right? There's deadlines, but nobody's like breathing over my neck. So I think that people do have a little bit more flexibility, and it's low risk. Like, it doesn't cost me anything. It doesn't cost me any time other than the call. I don't have to get my car. I don't have to buy coffee. I can just have a quick phone call with you. And when it's done, I go back to my cube and do my work. So I think
Right.
that now is a really great time to leverage this space where we can have these video calls.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I just want to follow up on what Hannah was just saying, if you don't mind. A friend of mine has that actually Abby Kohut who you've met, Hannah.
Yeah, I know Abby.
Mentioned to me mentioned in a presentation she did years ago that she knows someone who every morning on the commute has a virtual cup of coffee with someone, 15, 20-minute conversation. I love that idea, and that's something that really needs to be more widespread right now.
No, yeah, I agree. I agree completely.
Totally.
Starbucks used to let you have virtual coffees with people, so you could order a coffee and have it sent to somebody, like a gift card. I don't know if they still do that, but I guess you could do it with anybody, any coffee company. You just send them a gift card and say, hey, we're having coffee. We're having a call next week. I wanted to send you a virtual gift card for coffee.
Yes. And LinkedIn had something similar, but it was more about it's the kudos feature, right? Which I haven't seen now for
what
I don't know if
that?
I don't know if they're still there. There was like they were all the rage, and then they vanished. I saw them crop up again, and then so I don't actually know, but it's a laudable attempt to try and bring additional ways to say attaboy or good job. But some people didn't like them because they thought they were hokey. Other people just felt, well, they're why would I want to do this? It's like a work anniversary.
Well, they're trying to make it more human, right? And that's sort of one of the things that Ed was talking about. These conversations aren't like, they're not business meetings. They're conversations. Right. So there's got to be a personal element there.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of engagement strategy, I would say to job seekers, but everyone, not just job seekers, but if conversations are there waiting to happen. So if you, for example, follow a hashtag that is relevant to your function, relevant to your field industry, and start with a hashtag and follow where the hashtag goes, and you'll quickly find content which is relevant to you and of interest to you professionally. But people will coalesce around that hashtag content, and you should dive in. If you have something to add, then this is your opportunity to stick your head above the parapet and improve your profile or get a profile. Just start having conversations. I think of comments around posts, short form content. I think of those as the new groups, right? Because this is where people like to hang out, right? Groups, forget about LinkedIn groups. Groups are just alive and well around comments and posts. And they're not just comments, right? It becomes dialogue. They become conversations quickly when people respond to you. And LinkedIn have made that really easy by, adding a box which basically fills in the person's name for you. So you don't even have to tag. So I'll respond to Ed and say something to him, just responding to what he said. And then others can react to that. They can like what I say. It's like instant gratification. It's like, 40 people liked my comment. Well, that's all well and good, but what's really happening is that you're engaging and you're making new pals, new friends, and some of those friends, hey, guess what? They might help you to open doors. There are all kinds of benefits if you dive in instead of hanging by the standing by the sidelines. And the big mistake that I see a lot is people just reacting with a like, right? It's like, a like's not going to help you, my friend. You need to comment. You need to get out there, because a like is not much in terms of engagement currency. They're easily spent, and they're not worth that much.
So really quickly, and then I want Ed to address this question.
Yeah. I'll leave it up to you answer it.
But Andy, don't you think too that one of the, especially for people with small LinkedIn networks, commenting is one of the greatest ways to grow your network, because you don't need to be connected to anybody that you're actually commenting on.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the key thing here is like, there's no dance. You don't even have to do the connection dance, right? Because, Ed and I don't know each other. I comment on something he said. Ed thinks, wow, that was a smart comment. I like that. Actually, who is this Andy guy? Let me check out his profile. And then, but you don't, that's the thing about followers. Followers don't have to be connections. And they're, so LinkedIn is doing absolutely everything possible to help you build different kinds of relationships, whether you're connected with someone, whether you're following them, or if you're just known to each other via comments. There are lots of different ways that you basically can, can meet, discover, and build relationships with.
Yeah, and I guess I would add, I've noticed this week more people that are new to me commenting on my posts. So that is perhaps anecdotal evidence that there is more activity online. Maybe they're following the hashtags. I'm not sure. Let's go ahead and answer this question, but I did notice that Andrew Seaman, an editor on LinkedIn, he made mention for job seekers to follow the hashtag hiring. And then I think the other one's hashtag is it coronavirus hiring or corona hiring?
I think it's coronavirus hiring.
Yeah, for companies to use that. But this question, do HR and recruiters follow topical hashtags and see who makes insightful questions? Ed? Recruiter?
That is a great question. I'm glad you asked it. Thank you very much. I'm sure that's on a lot of people's minds. So the short answer to your question is some will, some recruiters, a lot of recruiters are typically fairly knowledgeable about LinkedIn, but this is not universally true, of course. Just like any population, you can't necessarily ascribe any particular skills or traits to every member of that population. So with that caveat in mind, this is not a practice that I normally use. I will follow hashtags that are relevant to myself, to the organization, to the kinds of positions that I'm looking to fill. However, I'm not typically looking for those comments as a general rule for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a lot of content that gets rolled up into the hashtags. The really big, important hashtags that are of interest to you have so much content associated with it that it's very difficult to keep on top of it all. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of trying to sip from a fire hose, So that's kind of the challenge in the approach that you're talking about. Now, there may be times when I'm looking for something very specific. For example, let's say I am seeking someone who knows all about robotic process automation, which has been a really interesting topic in certain leadership circles in the last few years. So if I would follow that hashtag, anybody who's talking about it, that could potentially be interesting to me because adoption of that particular process and methodology is not especially widespread right now. So in corner cases, yes, this might make a great deal of sense. But for more typical kinds of circumstances, just the volume of content will make it extremely challenging to glean any useful insights in my opinion.
That's good to know.
Totally agree.
That's
and I see Kenneth Lang made a great comment there. He says that he's saying that various LinkedIn employees are offering 6 months free premium. So in terms of free premium, there are quite a few things that LinkedIn has been doing for a while. We already mentioned the trial, the free trial, so you can do it for a month. You can also, if you are a U.S. military vet, you can. Yeah, you can. They're actually offering a full year of LinkedIn Premium membership. That's not just to the vets themselves; that's also to their spouses.
Oh wow!
Which could be quite a big deal, and that's within 6 months of the end of service. So that's an important freebie for U.S. military vets and their spouses. You can also utilize LinkedIn groups. One thing that they're still good for, slight dig, is that, sorry, Ed, couldn't help it. Slight dig. What they're still good for is if you're a member of a group, you have an allowance of 15 in-mails that you can send to fellow group members. So you could switch, right? You could join as many different groups as you want and keep switching. You get you can join up to 100. But if you find a target, someone that's, in a target company, let's not call them a target. If you need someone who's potentially going to help you, you browse their profile, you see which groups they're a member of, then you join, one or some of those groups. You get into the group, let's say, hopefully pretty quickly. You can then message them as a group member. So you can, that's free. Another case of free, and that's a monthly allowance of 15. Obviously, don't use all 15 on the same person, because then that would be stalker-esque. Use that allowance wisely. And then the other free is that you can lost my train of thought. Yeah, some premium members, LinkedIn were a bit sneaky, a bit naughty about this, but there used to be a thing, or there still is a thing called open profile. Ed knows what I'm talking about, but open profile used to be on your profile as a badge, part of your premium, which you could proudly display. And what it means is that you can, in essence, you can send that person who has the premium account, you can send them a free in-mail. Right. So it costs nothing to send them an in-mail. You don't have to be connected, so it's not messaging. An in-mail if they have open profile switched to open. And I say LinkedIn were naughty. Well, yeah, they took it off. So now no one knows that, I can send an email to Andy. I can send an email to Virginia, Hannah, or Ed. You don't know. So if you don't know, then you try it. Right? You try it, and then guess what? You don't get charged for that in-mail because it just goes through. So that's another freebie that you should all be aware of, especially job seekers.
And in terms of reaching out, I agree with what you all said earlier, that I think the first couple of days of last week, people were just so mind-boggled that I don't know that was the right time to be reaching out. But this week, people are settling in a little bit. Certainly next week, we'll continue to do so. If you don't have LinkedIn, you can search for their emails through other ways. Austin Belchek through Cultivated Culture has an amazing tool called mailscoop.io, and I have yet to see an email that is not correct. So you can fish for the emails, try to reach out to people that way. Twitter's another great platform, but use LinkedIn to search for them. It's the world's greatest CRM in my mind.
Absolutely.
For that.
And then LinkedIn Learning, if you do a search on LinkedIn Learning on Twitter, right, just those two words, LinkedIn Learning, you'll find the LinkedIn Learning account. And they're doing a lot in terms of free courses, right? So it used to be Linda, they acquired Linda. And for example, they're now running 16 online courses completely free on working remotely. And so everything under the umbrella of working remotely, right the way down to making the most of your time, and there's some skill courses there as well. I forget, but so yeah, look on Twitter specifically, LinkedIn Learning, and then that'll take you to the page for what LinkedIn are doing in terms of offering free learning. Why wouldn't you do that? You're at home and you want to. I was going to say level up. I don't want to say level up. I'm going to say skill up.
Skill up. There you go. Yeah. Let's go ahead and answer Stephanie's question. I've recently taken a job at a mid-sized university as a career coach. This information is very helpful. Thank you. Do you have any specific advice for graduating seniors anxious about the job search process at this time? I can start if that works. I usually do not recommend, as we said earlier, to apply online as your first point of entry. I recommend a 90-10, 80-20 max split, where 80% of your time is networking, 20% is online. But those do look at, I'm now shifting that strategy a little bit, telling people, to new grads as well, look at postings that came out in the last few days. Those are more pressing and more urgent. There's going to be more need for sort of frontline people, I think, more entry-level people with certain industries. So I would definitely advise new grads to be strategic in what they're looking at. Make sure their resumes and can pass through applicant tracking system, make sure their names aren't in the headers, make sure that run it through some software to make sure that it will not get kicked out of applicant tracking software. If they have any questions, there's tons of articles on that. But this is just as good a time as any for college kids also to get their profiles up, get on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
the nod.
absolutely.
Who wants to add on to that?
Yeah, I would just say that I wrote an article last year specifically targeting LinkedIn. Not LinkedIn, specifically targeting new grads and indeed college students. And I honed in on the about section, and I highlighted, I think it was 5 or 6 summaries, now called about, because LinkedIn loves to change these things. But I highlighted these 5 or 6 because they did a really good job in terms of where they're at now in terms of just beginning, right, a nascent career. And I think that the biggest issue often with folks who are just starting off in workland is, well, what do I write here? I mean, I don't have any experience. Mm. And these folks understood the brief, and they basically did a very good job. So I would say do a Google search on LinkedIn summary graduates. You'll find my article, or just go straight to linkedinsites.com and you'll find that article, and then just look to see what these folks have done and use that as your cue. Have your son use that as a cue and basically follow their example. And I think he'll nail the about section. But that's the most important, as well as having, a decent professional looking headshot. By the way, you could do a headshot at home now because the tech is there again. If you have an iPhone and portrait mode, mm-hmm. you're good to go, frankly. And of course it's free, and you can keep doing it until you find the perfect shot. Yeah. And then, don't just take your own word for it. Get multiple opinions of people you trust. Hey, should I put this on LinkedIn? I don't know. What are other people doing on LinkedIn? Let me check. Well, actually, yeah, that looks really good. And so technology is your friend. You've got a very decent camera on your phone if you've got the latest phone, and you've got the software to actually take portrait shots. And also there's actually built-in editing on the LinkedIn platform itself to make that shot look absolutely excellent. So it's just you. It's nothing else in the background, ideally a white background, so it's not distracting. It's not you and your dog. It's not you and your kids, or you in a bow tie, right? Or you with a celeb. It's just you looking handsome, beautiful, well-presented, and professional.
Yeah, and I know even this applies to juniors as well, people that are worried about their getting internships to be able to have something on their resume. When I do new grad resumes, I make sure to ask them about classes and courses that they were proud of, papers that stood out. It's not all about the internships. Leadership in Greek life, in clubs, there's a lot you can dig into if you are, if your college kid is not able to get, unpaid internship experience right now because of what's going on. Because college kids are homebound too right now.
Exactly. Great advice, Virginia.
Well, I think Hannah's on mute. Okay. All right. So last question. I know we're running late. So those of you who are on this call that have been late, if you have been laid off or fear being laid off, what advice do you have for them in terms of hitting the ground running and trying to land as fast as possible?
I think it depends on their financial situation, right? Unemployment is very hard to get into the system, at least in New York State, because there's so many claims. It really, if you have to have a job tomorrow, then yes, there are lots of companies that are hiring jobs right now. They're the Amazon distributor, there's the Walmart, all of the retail are needing people to not just work the front, but to work the back in unpacking stuff and getting that going. So I would definitely, if money's an issue and you don't want to claim unemployment at this point in time, then go out and get one of those jobs because they're hiring right now and they need you now. Right, so you could start right away. But if money's not an issue and you're okay, you can ride it out for a couple more months with financially, then I would definitely go back to this whole process of getting your network going, identifying target companies, really fine-tuning the paperwork, your resume, your LinkedIn profile, laying that foundation, make sure you've got your pitch down, make sure you've got all of that really good, your stories, right, that you've got all that stuff ready to go so that when stuff does really open up, that you're ready. That you've laid some of the groundwork. You're not going to be spending hours and weeks and months trying to get your resume done. Do it now so that it's ready for when you are hitting the ground and applying for jobs. But I don't even think that they're not going to be applying for jobs. I think there's still some jobs out there right now.
I'm hiring plenty of people right now.
Yeah. I just saw on, I guess, JobScan, I'm on their mail list, and they said that one of the things they're seeing is that people are hiring, but it's hard to reach the candidates. So make yourselves available. Follow the hashtags, get your documents ready, figure out who you need to contact. This is the time to get everything together because when we're let out of our houses, things are going to come roaring back. There's every indication of that.
And make sure the information that you have on your profile page, your LinkedIn profile page, matches that of your resume, right? So check your dates, check your employer name, all of that good stuff. Just make sure that they.
He was pointing up at you.
Pointing up like the Brady Bunch.
Like he loved you. He liked he's like, what Andy's saying, what Andy's saying.
Oh, okay, right. That's good. I thought it was just complaining about the upstairs neighbor being too loud and British. Make sure that info matches, and also think about doing skill assessments. LinkedIn is doing this sexy cool new thing where you can actually submit yourself to examination for specific skills, and that skill set is increasing all the time in terms of what they're allowing you to test. Mm-hmm. And then once you pass and you get over 70%, it's an option for you to actually add a skill badge on your profile in the skill section next to that skill, which basically is quite a big proof, right? I was going to say social proof, but it's proof that you actually have that skill. So I think that's a great thing that LinkedIn are doing to improve the credibility of the skill section. And I won't mention endorsements because they still have a lot of work to do there.
Well, thank you all so much. We've run a little bit over. I know it's time for some of you to go eat dinner. But thank you all for joining. I'm going to make this recording available on my page. I'll share it with all of you so you can share on your pages. But thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye. Thanks, Hannah. Bye, guys.
You've been listening to Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco. To learn more about storytelling strategies to catch the eye of today's skim online readers, hiring and decision makers, go to www.virginiafrancoresumes.com.